It's 6 tables of 6 max and NL400. Mad action, not have time for an intro. Hey, guys. Jiggy on the mic for a 2-4 live video. And as you can see, this one is going to be 6 tables. I decided to go with that number of tables after a full ring video I made a couple of weeks ago. And I've received good feedback on it. It was like 9 tables of full ring, so it's gonna be 6 tables of short and dead. The principle of that kind of video is that it's gonna be a bit tougher for me to like talk in big details about some spots, but will get more spots. Should be more interesting hands as if I was only like 2, 3, 4 tabling. So I will play poker and I will comment and we will see what happens. That is basically what is going to happen as far as the plan goes. I have been playing for like 15 minutes on those tables and I have been playing ridiculously aggressive for now. So I already have really lose a mage, and I don't know much about the players right now, and I will try to discover my new friends as the video goes on. I do looks like we have a fish here in that guy. I already bluffed him big in the beginning and it worked. I did manage to win a buy-in there. I probably lost more than that bluffing away on the other tables, but I did win one there. No, I don't want to leave. Sorry. Okay, when I slow played my aces, and I'm gonna make a quick note on that hand where when I won that one. I think this villain here is basically an unknown, the aces hand I'm talking about. But I still think this is a pretty big mistake by a lot of players. I decided to go with the slow play on pre-flop. I think both are fine against an unknown. I could just try to go broke, but I decided to slow play. But the mistake that is going to arise so often when someone decides to slow play pre-flop their aces is that they don't keep on slow playing after the flop. They're just like, oh, I don't want a board to get scary and stuff, and I'm gonna raise right away. So I stack him with all of his pairs and stuff, and I see so many players do that, and it's just absurdly bad. I don't think I have any value. Oh noes. Oh noes. But yeah, it is absolutely bad not to slow play. I think as soon as your opponent is somewhat, at least a bit aggressive. So I did decide to slow play all streets, and it ended up working pretty well as he was just bluffing. I really don't mind his bluff. I think it's very fine on his part, but I did happen to have the very top of my range. So I think aces in that kind of situation is really great hand to just slow play almost every time because it basically keeps your 3-bet call then call down range, like that situation, your range a lot stronger in general if you do take that line almost every time with aces as soon as you're against a somewhat aggressive player. Like I said, it keeps your range a lot stronger. Yep. And sorry, I'm brain freezing. And yeah, people just can't like barrel off every single time. I think the ace queen was pretty standard. I read. Yeah, they cannot barrel off every single time in that situation, hoping that you're gonna fold all your middle pocket pairs because you're gonna have that quite a lot, obviously. Uh, so this is cool to do with aces to keep your range stronger. That's basically my point. So yeah, back to the tables. I think my ace queen was pretty standard. I could have bet the flop, but I know this guy knows me, and I thought he could go for check raise on that kind of board against me, since I'm basically normally betting close to 100% when the original raiser is checking to me. So, and I thought that it could get trickier like right in the beginning of the session, so I decided not to go for that. And it ended up working pretty well. I think turn and river I didn't have any more options, and what happened? Decided to dunk lead here against the guy who bluffed me out. This is a really bad card to keep my dunk lead bluff, I think. He's definitely calling with every possible pair on the flop, plus a lot of draws, but this card definitely doesn't strengthen my range. I could have top pair that turned into trips, but I'm gonna have a lot of draws and I'm gonna miss a lot on that turn, and I don't think I get a lot of folds on that turn. I could go for a check raise actually, that would be fun. The thing here is that he is going to bet that turn pretty much 100% of time with all that called the flop, every single hand that he called the flop with, every gut shot, every open ender, every flush draw, every overpair. He's not going to bet with like a pair of sevens or a pair of five, and it's pretty much all. But I don't have many options. I am going to check that kind of situation if I have a big hand pretty much every time for the reasons I've mentioned, and then decide whether to check raise a turn right away or to like call and then check raise the river depending on if I feel he's strong or not. But with nothing at all basically and not really any showdown value, I could like check raise, but I don't like my image to pull that play. I don't think it works often. If I had a very good image, it could work a lot. Trying to just represent an 8 or a set of 7s or 5s. This guy is a fish. I don't want to get involved in the big pot against such an unpredictable guy in that spot. Yeah, I could just like check raise and represent, like I said, a full house there. But with my own image, I don't think he folds anything when I decide to take that line. So I don't think I could make anything work. I could like check call, planning to like check shove the river, but if he ends up checking back the river with something that has more showdown value than me, then my plan is totally screwed. So it would just be burning money away. If I'm sure that he's going to bet the river again and then fold to a shove, I could do that. But then again, I'm not even sure of what his like bet folding range is going to be on the river. So I just decided to abandon the plan right there. And this, like I said, is basically mostly because of my image, because I don't think I can make him fold any big sort of hands, any like over pairs that are going to be the hands that I'm mostly looking forward for him to fold, basically, if I decide to bluff after checking that turn. So, but yeah, like I said, this is kind of spot to recognize when I decide to dunk lead, which is pretty good. And he calls if the board pairs like that on that type of board. If I check, he's going to bet like 100%. So if you do have a big hand, or if you want to plan something or whatever, I think most villains are going to bet that turn pretty much all the ways when you check through them. So keep that in mind and vary your plays according to that. I don't have any info on that guy. This is a pretty pukey spot since, like I said, I don't have any info. Like none at all. Uh, this guy is just tight. I feel like he's going to be strong most of the time. I think I'm just going to 4-bet and get it in, just because I flatted sometimes they tend to get in a bit weaker or do strange stuff. So I just decided to 4-bet. I could have flatted again, but I don't know if he's going to be bluffing a lot on flop and turn, so I don't know if I should slow play and stuff. So when I really don't have any info on a guy like that, I just prefer playing it pre-flop and hoping he makes a pre-flop mistake, which he did do. And I'm winning left and right. Yeah, baby. And this guy, I just said he was tagged because I saw on my HUD that he was playing 17-12. So I decided that this kind of guy is not that likely to just like start jamming post-flop. So I didn't think that slow playing would have as much value as trying to get it in pre-flop and with these positions. Unless he thinks that I'm full of shit every single time there, but I'm pretty much never ever going to be full of shit against that against a guy with such those stats basically and those position. I really hate like it's just dumb. It's just totally bad to go broke here. I'm gonna have ace king so often anyways. It really is bad. So yeah, that was bad, sir. You suck. Here, I think this guy, from what I've seen him play like a really strange hand earlier, so I decided just to go broke. Oh no, I don't have any time bang. I'm gonna have to make that quick. I'm having a lot of nice hands right now. This is ridiculous. But yeah, I just decided that you would raise sometimes with crap and decide to go broke because I did see him earlier play something really strangely. Now I am not really excited about getting that in. I think he is going to have tens or threes quite a lot. But still, like I said, I did see him do something really dumb. Uh, so I'm just going to go broke and hope he's still doing something dumb. Kind of sucks that I have the ace of hearts too because he doesn't have the nut flush draw like ever. But it looks like he's not that strong. Decided to just flat here. I think this player's range, but I don't know much against the player. Basically, bottom line is, since I really don't know much about his dunk leading range, I don't really want to go broke. I decided to take the easier option route of just flat and then reevaluating. And I happen to river this second best flush possible. So I'm probably going to. And he folds. This is weird. I think the little tiny bit of info that I had on him was enough for me to just go broke and hope he was doing something dumb, which it looks like he was doing. This totally sucks. This absurdly sucks. I was about to call pretty much any kind of river bet, but when he just overbets like that, I have basically absolutely no clue. The only hand I have ever played against that guy is that pre-flop ace queen against kings that I just played. Let me think about that for a moment. I basically don't think he's ever bluffing, to be honest. I cannot see what he would like dunk lead the flop with, and then just decide to fire again on the turn, and then decide to overbet on the river. As a bluff, because I think if he's not really strong, uh, he has at least a bit of showdown value. Like he's not, I don't feel like he's going to be dunk leading that flop with like total air and then decide to go for a big bluff there. So yeah, I'm just gonna give up hope he has a missed flush draw lower than my king eye, which is what happens because I run so good. Coming back, yeah, like I said, when he dunk leads and then he bets again on the turn and then he over bets the river. Like I said, I don't have any info on that guy, so my assumptions could be wrong there. But on that type of board, when he dunk leads and then bets again on the turn, I don't think this is ever, like I said, total air. So unless he's like holding Jack 10 with no spades and decides that, okay, if I overbet, he's going to fold anything but the ace of spades, basically. But I do have a lot of ace of spades in my range, and if he's bluffing, I think most players here are more likely to make it a bit smaller, just hoping that I fold all of my non-spade hands. But then again, he could try to make me fold a big hand, but I just felt that this is not going to be a bluff that often, basically. Uh, but like I said, pretty tough to make assumptions when I basically don't have any sort of info about the guy, except from the fact that he's going broke in the blinds against an early position raiser with ace queen suited, which is obviously disgusting in my opinion, but whatever. I decided to fold, as you can see. Here I could dunk lead. I don't hate a dunk lead there. And this is actually what I'm going to do. I think I get a lot of value by dunk leading that kind of hand from any pair plus draws that are uh, worse than mine and are going to call like two streets, something like I have in mind 10 jack, 9 jack, stuff like that. If I'm beaten by like ace queen or kings or something like that, I am going to have to pay at least two streets of value anyway. So I think I'm better off trying to make weaker hands that would check back, pay me with that like type of strongish hands. And I think this hits my blinds flatting range enough for me to be possible to have like a straight or two pair or set here. So I don't feel like I'm ever getting bluff raised by one of these two players. If I was playing against more aggressive, tougher opponents, that could not be true. But here, I think I'm never ever getting bluff raised. So if I get raised, I think I have pretty easy fold. But like I said, I want weaker hands to call, hands that could have checked back if I was just if I had just checked the flop. This is pretty much it. And I did have that hand that I wanted to talk about. Here I think I'm gonna go for three streets of value with my eggs. This is pretty thin, but the king is like the classic obvious scare card on the turn that people are going to barrel as a bluff. And I've played quite a lot against that guy, and he knows who I am. And he knows that I'm capable of just firing big bluffs a lot. So he could have like tens and nines and then just call me down easily. But I think he is going to make a lot of calls. He could even call me with ace high there. I am pretty sure of that. So I'm just going to go for value. And yeah, he did have nines, which kind of sucked. But I think he's snapping with like sevens and sixes, which he is going to play the exact same way. Threes even, a pair of five with like ace five or something like that. So I really don't mind. I think this is one of the only ends that are gonna beat me, but I really don't mind. I think going for value for three streets is definitely the way to go, and it makes me tougher to play against, of course, just because I'm not only bluffing when I go for three streets here on that type of board with the turn card being a king. Uh, Here I could three bet, but this guy looks like he wants to play a pretty aggressive pre-flop game, and I like my hand too much with those odds to lose it to a four bet. So I'm just gonna flat. I would have three bet a weaker, like king ten offsuit for sure. King ten suited, I just like the end a bit too much. I just want to play it absolutely. In my mind, too much value to three bet that. And he bets, so I am going to check raise. I think I don't represent that much, but I do have a couple of backdoors, two overs, and I think I am going to get away with a lot of folds, mainly on the turn. Uh, with a lot of possible turn cards that could give me straight, because here I'm basically representing straight draws and sets or like the rare 8-9. But at the same time, if he has nothing at all, he cannot, like, he just has to fold most of the time, which I think he's going to do unless he's super aggressive. So this is going to show profits right away. But there are a lot of good turn cards for me. Anything from like a 5 to a 5, 6, 7, 10, Jack, Queen, King is going to be good for me, and I'm going to be able to fire a big bluff very often there, I think. Here we are really deep, and I am drawing to the absolute nut, so I'm just going to hope to hit it. And here I am going to 3-bet that. 3, 4, 5, 7, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I'm no longer drawing to the absolute nuts, and it just put that, so I'm out of there. Okay. Okay, and coming back on that hand that I wanted to talk about, uh, I was sure. Okay, I just misread that. I was sure that I had raised from early position and get called in position. That does change the hand quite a bit. Uh, but yeah, I just flat from the blinds. But whatever. Check back. I decided to lead the turn. For value, basically, I think I do have a lot of values against draws and hands like that here. I really don't like checking basically any calls. And on the river, I thought that, but I think that still applies even if I flatted from the blinds. I could be bluffing a lot, so I could get called by worse. And I think basically this was definitely a value bet for any 10 that is going to decide that, okay, like DrGiggy is aggressive, so he is bluffing here with the flush getting there, so I'm just gonna call him with any 10. I think I'm getting called by like King 10, Ace 10, some Queen 10 suited in his range too, almost every time on that river. And if I get raised, like I don't think I ever get raised as a bluff, so I'm fine with the possibility of getting bluffed out because it's not even there basically, if that makes any sense. So yep, that's what happened. Decided not to 3-bet that guy because he's playing 50-30 basically, and I don't think he is ever folding, so I prefer to widen my value range, of course, and just flat with weaker hands in that situation. He checks back. I don't know what he's folding, or I don't think he could fold stuff basically. So I'm just going to hope that the board is good. And it was not. I have no clue, and I had basically no clue what he could fold on the turn of the river. No clue if I would have had to maximize a bluff by going for. I should have c-bet that. I was just away. Yeah, no clue if my bluff is going to be maximized by leading turn and river or only turn against that guy, because I don't know if he's going to fold. What is he going to check back? Is he going to even fold ace high by the river? So I just decided to give up right away just because I had no clue what was the best play, basically, like I said. This is the kind of hand when I'm raising from under the gun. I really don't want to get raised 200 big blinds deep. On that type of board, against someone as aggressive as the guy who like decided to just go broke with nines after under the gun raise earlier. I expect that guy. I don't know much about him, but from what I've seen, once again, this is only one play, but this is often pretty good to make a general idea of the guy. He is going to be pretty aggressive, 200 big blinds deep. I don't want to get raised on that flop, basically, with 8 especially. This is kind of board if I'm playing against someone aggressive, I'm going to just check close to 100% of the time out of position, being the original raiser, and then decide what happens. Now, I do want to get as much value as possible from weaker ends before the board gets any scarier, so I am going to check raise that, because I basically turned the nuts unless he has a straight, which would suck, and I snap, and he has nothing at all. This is cool. This is like absurd free money. Wow, that was nice. But I did my assumption of him being pretty aggressive just from the one hand that had been played earlier was pretty good, of course. He was more than aggressive, he was just absurdly retarded. I don't know what was that. My plan was basically, because I thought that I was against someone pretty aggressive, my plan was basically to check call, check call, check call, unless the board turned into something absurdly tough or whatever. This is even easier to do with the 8 of hearts, since like a lot less boards are going to be so shitty for me when I start check calling down. And I'm going to take that line against, once again, someone that I think is aggressive, being 200 big blinds deep. I don't want to bet and then get raised and then be in a shitty spot. I'm going to take that line with like aces, king, queens, even. I'm going to bet like only weak draws, like gut shots and stuff like that, or the absolute nuts, basically, on that type of board against someone, once again, that I feel is gonna raise me a lot and put me in tougher decisions. Or like, unless I think the guy is just going to call me down with middle pocket pair, I could just bet aces and again try to go for 3 streets. But against someone trickier, like that guy was definitely tricky. My first assumption was good. I thought that just check calling and hoping it was randomly bluffing was the best idea, and it ended up working well. Obviously, the turn is check raise against that guy from what I've seen from him, and it ended up working well. That's how I run. I turn trips, and I stack the guy 200 big blinds deep on a pure bluff. This is a pretty big squeeze. I could call that and go 3 away. I think this is very borderline, but I'm gonna do it for video purposes. Try to get into spots. I have the nuts basically every single hand. This is absurd. Here I'm going to bet, and here I'm going to 4-bet. and try to get in those jacks. I don't want to call out of position, it would just suck. And here, no real draw, just a backdoor. I'm just gonna give up right away. My jacks, I could check and then try to catch some bluffs or stuff like that from possible straight draws, but having a couple of jack blockers myself, there are a lot less, not a lot less, but like just less straight draws in his range, so he's going to float a bit less on the flop, but that also means that he's going to be very strong a lot more. Oh no, that's aces. I don't know what to do basically. This is really close. I think I'm just going to bet, 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 and hope to get called by worse. Some ace highs are gonna float the flop for sure. Problem is I once again don't have much info on the guy, so I don't know if he's the type of guy who is going to float a lot on that board and then try to turn his hand into a bluff or two streets. When I check that, there are a lot of guys where I would just check the turn because it does look like a lot like I'm giving up, and then they're going to fire a couple. Just that's probably what I should have done. Actually, thinking back about it, uh, I don't think that he is going to have a 10 that often because we're so deep, and most players would tend to raise a 10 right away on the flop being that deep. So that does weaken his range a lot. And I think when I check, like I said, it does look like I'm giving up a lot. So I think he is going to fire two streets of bluff if he has any clue of basically what I just talked about, of like the fact that I'm going to look weak and stuff. So I should have just checked the turn, I think, and basically check out because this is close to being like the top of my range when I check the turn, and this is a pretty good hand to just try to bluff cat witch on that board. I think I'm going to, because betting doesn't accomplish anything the more I think about it. I'm not getting called like turn plus river by words very often. I'm going to get called by ace highs and nines, and that's pretty much it. And ace highs are going to fold most of the time, like at least on the river. So yeah, more I think about it, the more betting the turn just sucked. Uh, Given that dynamic, under other circumstances, it could have been good, but it just wasn't there. Small mistake on my part. No big deal. I'm just gonna 3-bet. I did 3-bet that guy a couple of times, and it did fold a couple of times on that table. But it doesn't look like the type of guy who is even thinking about playing back for now. So I'm keeping in mind that I 3-bet him 3 times so far, and he's given up every single time. My way to approach that kind of behavior most of the time is going to just keep pounding on him until he makes a move, basically, until I feel like he's going to make a move or whatever. Just keep in the back of my head his mental state about me aggressing him, basically, and then try to, just from his general play, try to try to feel when he is going to play back light or when he is just going to have it. It's pretty tough to explain, and it's just pretty tough to explain. It is pretty tough to explain. I know it doesn't look like it, but it is. You're like, oh, it doesn't look tough to explain. Jiggy's doing it so well. But yeah, it is pretty tough to explain, so I'm just gonna change subjects in a subtle manner. I am going to flat king jack suited once again. Too good of a hand here. I don't want to 3-bet and get 4-bet. So I'm going to flat, and here this guy is not full stack, so he looks like he could be sucking. And this guy, from what I've seen so far, just sucks. So I am going to call. I'm going to float here on that ace high board. I think this is a pretty standard float. This is an obvious standard call. I could turn my hand into a bluff later in the hand. I will see about that. Here, this is a standard call / see what happens. And on that board, here I am definitely going to bet. Try to go, bro. Check back that, delay my c-bet. And here I'm going to turn my hand to bluff for 2 streets. I think he's betting all of his 2 pairs plus. And on that board, I'm going to bet again here. Just hop, 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 check, hop, 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 hop. Don't think I have any value with my king jack, and I think I do have enough showdown value to just try to get it showdown. I decided not to turn my hand into a bluff for a couple of streets because I think that situation is a situation where my opponent could get a bit trickier and check some good hands on the turn. Thinking that given how the board played out, I could bet a lot more hands and then check raise me or whatever. I think showing it down is better, and it is a bit different from. I'm just gonna shove there, hoping I get called by worse. Obviously, I think this is pretty standard 3-barrel, hoping to get called by worse. In that type of situation, sometimes I could go for like checking the river and hoping that he bluffs a missed draw. But here, I think I'm against a regular, and like nothing got there basically, absolutely nothing got there. So I don't think when I check he's going to try to bluff ever, just because he looks so weak. So if he has a misdraw, I'm going to like check out that type of situation when at least one draw got there, so he could try to represent it. Now that he could not represent anything, I'm just hoping that he makes an hero call, which he did do, which is cool. And I'm going to barrel with like a draw myself quite some time. So this is cool. Check, check, fold. It's going pretty fast. Okay, so yeah, I could have some weak hands in my range, and I'm turning the nuts once again against like a flatter there. I'm just going to bet pretty big because I think if he is to play the hand at all, he's going to be pretty strong here. After flatting a 3-bet type of board where he could have like 2 pairs or top pair, top kicker, or a set quite often actually. So I don't think he's going to fold to a pretty big bet, and I don't think I have to balance that because I've never seen that guy before, so I don't think he's a regular, and he's only on that table. And when people sit on the table and just flat a 3-bet out of position, I tend to believe that they suck most of the time. So I just went big for value without any thought of having to balance that. And yeah, I did. Pretty tough to go back to hands, but this is the format. I still like it. Gonna check and turn my hand into a bluff there after seeing like how he has a tendency, I think, to just check back and give up some hands. This is definitely a spot where I'm just gonna bet turn in river and expect him to fold a lot of stuff. This is obviously not a very good card, but I don't think there are many aces in his range, and it could make him fold some hands, some weak low pairs, just because an ace is scary. So I kept on playing with my plan. I did represent a lot of things that I could have had, like made hands that I could have had. So he's gonna fold like stuff like naked 7. He's going to call the turn for sure, just because he is dumb. Any pair of 5, 4, 5, 6 is going to play that way. 9 is probably betting the flop. So that's a lot of weak hands in his range that he's going to fold on the river. Even if I like putt the river, it doesn't have to work every time. It only has to work 50% of the time. So this is a spot where I'm going to pull the bluff pretty much every single time and don't even mind the times that I'm called, just because, like I said, it has to work in a vacuum. This is a spot where it has to work, like I said, 50% of the time, and it is going to work 50% of the time, pretty much every single time, unless you are under special circumstances. But those were not, and I prefer balancing by just firing out a big bet pretty much every single time in that situation on the river, and doing it with really thin value as well, with like any 9 basically. I'm doing that here, so I am balanced because I don't have a bluff every single time, and sometimes I'm going to value bet myself also, but I don't mind it because it makes it easier for me to bluff more when I value a bit thinner. So I'm just going to like pot, turn, and river in that kind of situation, and it's going to show more profit in the long run than like checking and reevaluating and doing stuff like that, I think. Here I'm going broke. I have queens. Here I'm flatting in position. This guy looks like a rig on the tight side of things so far, but we are deep and I have a nice looking hand. So I'm going to call that. I'm going to come back on the cramp table, king queen hand in a moment. Don't worry. Here I don't really have a good draw. I'm just gonna. He checked so fast. I think this is just a give up so often. I'm just gonna bet like 1/3 of the pot and hope that it was a give up, and it just looks like that. If he had taken some time before checking, I could have been a bit more reluctant as to trying to bluff so weak, because he could like check that board being that deep with like an overpair or a jack or something like that. I could have taken another line, but with him just like I said, checking so fast, I think this is just a give up with nothing at all most of the time. So no matter how much I bet, I should win the hand most of the time. And even if I have a good draw here, let's say I have like queen 10 offsuit, which is a pretty good draw to the nuts. Given the fact that he checks so quick, this is a spot where I would most likely check back and then delay my C bet or raise a turn bet or something like that, because I'm so sure that he has nothing at all on the flop, and a really good draw on that board could be so valuable if I hit it because I'm in position and stuff, that I just want to get more action with any sort of good hand basically, since he checked so fast. So as a general rule of thumb, this hand shows you guys to try not to give like so many obvious timing tells against good players, because you are going to get exploited a lot when you do that against good players. Uh, any good players at higher limits, if you start moving up at limits and you have good regulars that are giving you trouble. I'm just flatting every single time against that guy because he's so bad. But uh, yeah, against regulars who are gonna give you trouble, at least try to concentrate on that and stop giving off timing tells. I see people even at 10-20 still give off so many timing tells. It's not even funny. So try to be aware of that. Just don't care about a fish because they're not gonna look at that, but be aware of that against good players. I'm going to check call. I don't think I have any other option. And here I'm going to start barreling my ass. See what happens depending on his timing once again. I don't expect that guy to give off a lot of timing tells, but still, this is a good board to fire at least twice, see what happens. Kind of sucks because, like I said, he could be tired of me because I did 3-bet him a couple of times, and I think he knows that I'm really, really aggressive. So I wasn't sure yet if I was going to 3-barrel that. This was definitely a question of sometimes I'm gonna do it, sometimes I won't, depending on the board, plus the timing of his calls. So the first barrel ended up working anyway, so it's fine. I still think that like the first barrel in itself is gonna show a profit almost always, because I'm like betting half the pot, so it has to work like 1/3 of the time. So always keep that in mind, that when you bluff, guys, as a general rule of thumb, it doesn't have to work every single time. So just bluff more, you pussies. And I can finally come back maybe to that king queen hand that I decided. Yeah, that's a while ago now. I'm just gonna bet that. Open that. Yeah, I flat. Up, up, up. Call the flop. I could raise the flop and like try to turn my hand into a bluff right away, because I do have a blocker to ace king and a blocker to queen 10, which are the two most like likely nuts that he could have, but he still could have a set or a big combo draw. So, and I do like, my hand is not going to be tough to play, of course. I flop the nuts once again. That's how I roll. I'm going to check, probably check raise. He gives up. I am going to check raise that for sure. This would be such a great spot for me to bluff, and I think this guy understands right away some aggressivity concept. So I think when I check raise, he is going to pay me off sometimes. And I'm going to check river pretty quickly and just see what happens. And he checks back, and sucks. I thought about dunk leading the flop, but at that deepness, I think most guys would be a bit cautious and just like flat and overpair when I dunk lead that flop with those stack sizes. But yeah, we're not that deep basically, so that could have been good still. Uh, Dunk leading the flop certainly was an option. I decided to check without that much history against the guy. It's very tough to say which one is the best play. I decided to check, and I think when I check in a turn, it comes on the turn. I don't have any other option but to check again, just because he is going to, he is going to, he is going to do what? He is going to bet the turn so often, and then since I have such a good check raise bluff spot, if I'm against someone who could recognize that, I do have to do it for value as well, of course. Here, the flush draw gets there. He bets again. I do look like I have an ace a lot, I think. Here I'm gonna bet, of course. Well, here this kind of sucks. I cannot check raise. I don't think on that type of board I can make him fold any big hands. And he could be bluffing, but the problem here I'm just gonna fold basically. I do look like I have an ace a lot, and with that sizing, I don't think he's trying to take me off that ever. I think he has a queen or a king 10 or a flush pretty much always. I'm just going to go broke. I don't think he's going to keep on bluffing on that board if I just flatten. The board could get a lot shittier. And here, and he did have the absolute nuts, but normally I full in these spots. I did not. Sucks. Here I could have two barreled, but I ran out of time. So I did not, and now I cannot pull any sort of credible bluff because he's going to call me with any pocket pair. I didn't make my 3-bet pretty big on gateway just because I was against a bad player, but he did fold, which sucks. Yeah, he's going to call it any sort of. I don't think the turn is even that good of a spot against an unknown to two barrel anyway, so I don't mind my check. And coming back on the 9-10 hand here, I decided to check the flop. I could have dunk led once again, decided against it for no real reason. I think this is a even better spot to dunk lead now that I think about it a bit more, because I think that since this is a spot that I'm going to be dunk leading a lot as a bluff, this guy is going to recognize that. He is going to raise small as a bluff himself pretty often on that, and then I can shove, and then he can fold, and then I can show a nice profit, and then I can turn the absolute nuts. 72 to bet that. And what am I gonna do? He calls pretty quick. I think he is going to bluff if he has a missed flush draw because of the fourth straight getting there. And I think he is going to value any two pairs, and I don't think he's going to call a big bet with like ace jack, so I prefer checking here. He did have queen jack. I don't think he's calling a big bet with that on that type of board unless he's like really bad, but I don't know if he's that bad yet. But I think this is definitely a spot. I guess pretty much any guy basically. This hits his own range so much more than yours. If you're against someone that's going to value two pairs here, and I did think this guy would do that if he had that. It's basically a spot where if you bet big, he is going to call with only hands that would have bet if you checked anyways. So by checking, you do add some bluffs, some missed flush draws in his range as far as bluffs go, as far as what you can get value out of go. So this is definitely a good river check spot, I think. Here I don't know why I see bet, I'm not sure. I'm just gonna hope it is good. It's not. And here I'm going to 3-bet. And then I'm gonna come back on my king queen hand, if I have time to do so. One time, please. Where's the pause button, for the love of God? And then I flopped up too, because once again, that is how I roll. And I am going to bet that, because I'm in two guys anyways, and I don't want to get it checked around, of course. And to call. I'm going to check. To fold. I'm going to bet small for like value slash protection. This really sucked as a turn because I think this guy is going to have queens, kings, and aces quite a lot in his range. But he could have some other hands. We do have a pot size bet left, so I think I'm pretty much committed in playing the hand. I think my best play is to go smallish twice and hope that he's like calling me down with ace jack, basically. Gonna check down that, hope that my jack that I got on the turn is good. It is going to be good more often than against other players, just because this guy is probably calling the flop with a lot of bad hands. I'm just going to shove, hoping that he calls me down with naked jack. If I shove that turn, I think he did have queens, which sucks. It's a big part of his range. I'm actually hoping to only get called by ace jack by doing that, and I don't know if he's flatting his jack in that situation. But like I said, check folding that turn with only a pot size bet left and with 4 outs, no matter what happens, basically, might not be the best idea. I really don't think I can get myself to check fold that. I could have just checked. But then again, I think sometimes he's gonna have like the ace jack suited, king jack suited from time to time, or a random king queen suited that is definitely going to call at least a turn when I bet that small. That's kind of why I bet so small. If the river is like a 9, I'm probably just check folding my last monies. I could have check call the river as well because he's gonna check back queens from time to time. That's probably my best idea. But then again, I do want to get called down by ace jack suited or king jack suited. So this is a pretty close spot. Since I don't know the exact range of my opponent here, all I know is that he did not have a full stack. No, he did have a full stack at the beginning of the end. I thought he did not because he did not have one earlier in the session. So that changes my play a bit, and I think I should have ended up folding at some point in the hand. I really did not think he had a full stack for what it's worth, and it does change my play quite a bit. So I kind of brain farted there, not paying enough attention because I was doing other stuff. But yeah, this is really close, and I probably should have just checked the turn and hoped to get to showdown or fold if I meet any more resistance. Probably the way to go there. Kind of hate myself a bit for doing what I've done. But then again, I'm gonna try to go back on my king queen hand. For the love of God. This is kind of a joke. I don't even remember it. I just want to get over it one time in my life. So I flat. Yeah, this is good. So I flat again. Yeah. And on the turn, this is where it gets a bit trickier. I'm just gonna bet and try to represent either a queen or a flush that nobody has when everyone checks the turn, I think. This is a really bad river card. I think he's calling the turn with a pair plus a club pretty often. And or like ace king with the ace of clubs sometimes as well. I am going to check. What happened with that? King jack. He bet big on the river, I think. And he did have ace queen, which I did not expect. I'm gonna hope my 6 is good. I am giving up a lot of my bluffs against that guy, but bottom line is my general approach against that guy is that he's gonna call flops with so many weak hands that turning any sort of pair could be good against him. This one would happen. I was kind of busy. I'm kind of all over the place right now. Sorry about that. A bit too many spots arising, and I did make a couple of mistakes because of that, but no big deal. Check. I think this is standard. He bets 46. I should have called, actually, just because of the flush draw missing. But then again, he looks pretty passive, so I'm not 100% sure about calling. Because he's going to bet an ace most of the time on the river as well. But it's not like I don't have to be right that often. And the flush draw didn't miss, and I don't have any spade myself. So I probably should have called. But whatever, not a big mistake if it is one, because he will show up with an ace quite often. And finally, for I don't care what happens, I'm only talking about that for the next minute. For the love of God. Okay. So up, 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 up. And I decide to bet the turn, and I think this is pretty interesting because the fact is, when he checks that turn, I think there is absolutely nothing in his range that will stand two barrels turn plus river. I could have some big hands myself. I can have ace jack very well. I think he expects me to check back the kind of hand that I have right now. So he probably doesn't think that I'm going to be like that weak very often. So, uh, like I said, I think he is going to bet queen 10, any set, any ace king every single time on the turn, basically. And I do have the best 10 from time to time, of course, but since there are absolutely no ends that will check call turn and check call river in my mind, I am going to be able to make him fold. Did my bluff work? Yeah, well, that sucks, of course. I was actually planning on check raising the river, check shoving the river quite a lot there, but now that this happens, I think this is a pretty obvious fold. Since I do have some slow played big hands in my range, uh, I don't think you can do that as a bluff. Like every single time and show profit. There are spots where it's going to be so obvious that I have like a middle pair that he could shove twice the pot as a bluff pretty much every time and show a pretty nice profit out of it. But I don't think this is one of those spots because I could have an 8 and I could have sixes and threes quite a lot. I'm going to play those ends the exact same way. So yeah, you cannot just exploit me by shoving twice on the river. So I don't like folding myself there. I know that this guy's pretty good and he's pretty aggressive and stuff. And yeah, coming back on the king queen hand anyways, since there are no hands that are gonna call turn plus river, and I think sometimes he's going to have a6 with an ace low that decides to check the turn again, because I think this would be pretty standard given the nature of the board. I think I can make him fold those hands by betting again on the turn, and I could have two pairs with king jack too. So I'm just winning the pot 100% of the time when I bet turn plus river, and I'm making him fold the very top of his range when he's checking the turn in my mind, which is going to be ace x with x not being a second pair basically. Even ace queen he should fold it on the river pretty much no matter what the river is. So I prefer betting turn and betting river, turning my hand into a bluff in that type of spot basically on that exact board. And at the same time, I remember playing like a king jack hand where I turned the jack, but it was a bit different because it was a board and a situation where the guy could have checked a pretty big hand on the turn, hoping that I do something that I was doing on that table because uh, it was a bit different as a board and as a situation in general. So I'm gonna stop coming back on that because it probably made made me brain fart a couple of times just trying to get back in that spot. And I think I am now up to date with the ends, which is cool because I've been running late for the past 25 minutes trying to catch ends and explain them. But now I can relax a bit. I'm gonna make myself a coffee, cook a salad, call pocket sixes against the fish. Hope I hit a set. Yeah, a couple of small mistakes, I think. Not dunk leading the open ender in a 3-bet pot on bottom right. Oh, that was close. I thought I had hit first time because I had that. Look at that. Sad, 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 sad. I don't think this guy's gonna barrel off with nothing at all, so I think I can check call one pretty happily. I am rarely going to do that. I'm mostly going to be just check folding, giving up there against any sort of aggressive player. But again, against that type of player who probably doesn't know what a multi-barrel is, because he does look pretty passive, I'm just going to check call once and hope to get it to showdown. Yeah, bit small mistake with my 9-10 that I did not lead out dunk lead, I think, in the 3-bet pot. Uh, I remember that I think I've explained it anyway, so if you want to go back there and see it. And a mistake too, I do remember making another mistake, but I don't remember what it was. So yeah, no big deal. I'm not that mad against my play for now, given the fact that I've been trying to keep up to every hand that I was playing. Yep. So here I flopped up 2 once again. Yeah, my Jack 10 hand kind of sucked here, but this spot was a sucky one in general, so don't mind making some small mistakes in that close of a spot. I'm just gonna give out there. I was just going once on that board. And I still have the absolute nut, so I am obviously going to value bet that 82 and hope to get called by worse. I think here with the 7 of hearts I can check call at least once. He's going to bluff. Most people are going to bluff anyways, that type of board pretty often when I just check to them as the original raiser. Now I turn a very good card, so I'm going to try to get 2 streets out of value out of it if he has his queen, his jack, or that type of hand. Does not happen. And I'm going to 3-bet that guy again because I'm having fun doing that. I'm going to flat here because my hand is just a bit too good to 3-bet, and I did 3-bet him a couple of times. And I'm going to end the first part right here. I hope you enjoyed it. If you have any questions, please ask in the forums. This was Martin Fournier for Blue Fire Poker.